I removed my brother from my will after what he said at the hospital. In February, I was diagnosed with a condition that required emergency surgery and a hospital stay that ended up lasting 11 days. I am not going into the medical details because that is genuinely not what this is about. What matters is that for approximately 4 days, the outcome was uncertain enough that the medical team were not giving reassurances, and the people around me knew that clearly. My husband knew it, my closest friend knew it, and my brother Owen knew it too. Owen visited on the 3rd day. I was on a drip and had monitors attached, and I was frightened in the specific way you are frightened when you have been told that things could go either way, and you have had too many hours alone in a hospital room to sit with what that means for everyone you love. Owen came in and hugged me and asked how I was feeling, and I told him honestly that I was scared. He held my hand across the bed rail and sat beside me and said I was absolutely going to be fine. I believed him, and I was glad he was there. That part was okay. Then, about 20 minutes into the visit, while I was lying in that bed with the monitor beeping steadily beside my head, Owen asked me whether I had a will in place. I told him yes I did. He asked if it was fully up to date. I said I believed so. He asked who the executor was. I told him my husband. And then Owen asked, carefully and in a very measured tone, whether I had thought properly about what would happen to the house. I looked at him for a long moment. I asked him what he meant. He said he was only trying to be practical about it all, and that someone had to, and he wanted to make sure I had been clear about my wishes because these things got complicated, and he didn't want there to be any ambiguity later, especially where the house was concerned. He said the house in the very particular way that told me he had been thinking about it for considerably longer than this conversation had been going. I told him I was not dead yet. He said of course I wasn't, and he was only being practical. I told him that if he was being practical about things, he could leave my room. He said I was being unfair and he was only trying to look out for me. I told him clearly that looking out for me did not look like walking into my hospital room on the 3rd day of a life-threatening illness and asking about my property. He said families had to think about these things, and someone always had to be the one to do it. I told him to get out of my room right now, and I was not asking twice. He left. He texted me that evening saying he was sorry if he had upset me, and he had only been trying to be realistic about all eventualities. I did not reply. I had my solicitor on the phone the week after I was discharged. I described exactly what had happened in that hospital room, every detail of the conversation in order. She asked me clearly if I was certain about what I wanted to do. I told her I had been lying in a hospital bed, genuinely unsure on some days whether I was going to be alive the following month, and my brother had been thinking about the house. Yes, I was completely certain. The will was updated and signed before I had the follow-up surgery. Owen does not know he has been removed. He has called several times since I came home, and he comes across as warm and genuinely concerned. He asks regularly how the recovery is going. He mentions the house once in approximately every 3 conversations, obliquely, in passing, in the way he clearly believes I do not notice. I notice every single time. I am recovering well now. The prognosis is good, and I am going to be here for a long time. I intend to spend it with the people who sat in that hospital room with me because they loved me, and not for any other reason. Owen will find out about the will when the time eventually comes. I am genuinely not in any particular rush to tell him. Subscribe for more stories.
I blocked my entire family the night I found the group chat about me. I found it by accident. My cousin Jade had left her phone face up on the kitchen table at a family dinner, and a notification came through while I was sitting right next to it, and I could see the preview, and my name was in it, and something in my chest felt wrong immediately, and she had gone to the bathroom, and the phone was just sitting there on the table. I should not have looked. I am aware of that, and I was aware of it as I did it. I looked anyway. The group chat had a name that was meant to be a joke, the kind of joke that tells you exactly what the people making it actually think, and it had 14 members. My parents were in it. My sister was in it. Every aunt and uncle I have was in it. It had been active for 2 full years. 2 years in which I had sat at tables with all of these people. I am 30 years old. I have been in therapy for anxiety for most of my adult life, and I have been working very carefully on the idea, the genuinely difficult idea, that the world is not always judging me, and that my family loves me, and that I am not as much of a burden as I sometimes feel I am. 2 years of that work, sustained and deliberate and hard, and then I sat at my cousin's kitchen table and I read what they actually said about me when I was not in the room. They talked about my job, not in a cruel way, but in a sustained, pitying way, which was somehow worse than cruelty would have been. They talked about my relationship with my ex, and whether I had been too difficult in it, and whether that was why it had not worked out. They talked about my weight. My aunt had sent a photo of me from Christmas with a comment underneath it, and people had responded to it, and not one of them had said a single thing that I would have wanted to read. They talked about whether I was getting better, meaning therapy, in a way that made it absolutely clear they thought therapy was something I was doing because I could not cope, and not because I was actively trying to get better at being a person. Jade came back from the bathroom, and I was still sitting there holding her phone. She saw my face, and she went white. I put the phone down very carefully on the table, and I did not say a word. I picked up my bag. I said I needed to go home because I was not feeling well, which was the most accurate thing I had said to any of them in a very long time. I left. I got home, and I sat down on my bathroom floor, and I thought very carefully for a long time about what I wanted to do. Then I got up off the bathroom floor, and I blocked every single one of them. 14 people. My parents, my sister, my aunts and uncles, my cousins. I did not send a message first. I did not write anything. I did not explain. I just removed them all from my phone and from my life, and from the ability to reach me while I sat with what I had read and worked out how I felt about it. My mom drove to my flat the next morning and rang the bell 3 times. I did not answer the door. She put a handwritten note through the letterbox that said she was sorry and she loved me and she wanted to explain properly. I sat on the floor of my hallway, and I read it and I cried, and then I got up and put it on the kitchen counter where I could see it. I have spoken to my mom since, and those conversations have been hard, and they have been honest, and they have not been resolved. I have not spoken to most of the others, and I am genuinely not sure I want to yet, and I am not going to rush it. What I know is that I spent 2 years carefully building a version of myself that could trust the people around me, and one evening in my cousin's kitchen took all of that apart, and I am having to rebuild it again from the beginning. That is slower and harder the second time around than the first time was, but I am doing it, slowly and not without a significant amount of difficulty. That has to count for something. Subscribe for more stories.
I told my stepmom she will never be in my life again after Easter. I need to be clear about who Diane is before I tell you what happened at Easter, because the Easter thing will make more sense with the context, and the context is not short. Diane Diane married my dad when I was 14. My mom had died 2 years before. Diane was not unkind to me in the way that leaves marks you can point to. She was unkind in the way that is harder to explain. The kind where nothing she ever did was technically wrong, but the accumulation of it was suffocating. She made it clear from the beginning that she considered my presence in her new life an inconvenience she was graciously tolerating. She rearranged my bedroom into a home office within a year of moving in and told my dad I could sleep on the pullout when I visited. She introduced me to her friends as my husband's son, which is technically accurate and also the coldest possible way to say it. She forgot my birthday 4 years in a row and remembered it the 5th year only because my aunt had brought it up at Christmas. I had been managing Diane for 12 years and I had become very good at it because my dad loved her, and that mattered to me. Easter this year was at my dad's house. My wife Jess was with me. I had told Jess for years about Diane in the vague way you describe someone you have learned to simply navigate, and Jess had always given Diane the benefit of the doubt in the way generous people do. Diane stopped giving Jess that benefit about 40 minutes into Easter lunch. She made a comment about Jess's job, something about how it must be nice not to need to take it seriously, and Jess smiled and let it go. Then she made a comment about how we were living, something about our flat being cozy, delivered with a smile that meant small. Jess smiled and let that go too. Then Diane asked in front of my dad and my aunt and 2 cousins whether Jess and I had thought about having children yet, and when Jess said we were still figuring it out, Diane said she supposed that made sense given that some people took longer to get themselves sorted. Jess went very still. My dad looked at his plate. I put my fork down. I looked at Diane and asked her what she had just meant by that. She said she was only asking, and people were so sensitive these days. I told her she had made 3 comments about my wife in the past hour, and this was the last one she was going to make. Diane said I was overreacting and that she was only making conversation, and perhaps my wife needed to develop a thicker skin. I told Diane that my wife did not need to develop anything, and that Diane needed to understand something that I should have said years ago. I told her she had never once made me feel welcome in my own father's house, and I had accepted that because he was my dad and I loved him. But she was not going to sit at his Easter table and chip away at my wife, and I was not going to manage it quietly this time. Diane said I was being cruel, and she had done nothing but try with me for years. I told her trying looked like different things to different people, and to me it had looked like a pull-out sofa and 4 missed birthdays and being introduced as my husband's son. My dad said my name. I told him I loved him and I was not finished. Diane stood up and said she would not be spoken to like this at her own table, and she went upstairs. My dad followed her. My aunt looked at me and said quietly that it had needed to be said for a long time. My cousin said nothing. Jess held my hand under the table. My dad came back down after 20 minutes and said Diane was very upset, and could we please try to have a good rest of Easter. I told him I would be in touch during the week, and Jess and I left. I called my dad 3 days later. I told him I loved him and I wanted a relationship with him, and I was done having a relationship with Diane. Then I hung up. We have not talked since. Still wonder why he married her. Subscribe for more stories.
My coworker reported me for being too close with the boss. The boss is my brother. HR called a meeting. The email arrived Friday at 4 p.m. Mandatory meeting Monday morning regarding workplace conduct concerns. No details, no context, just a calendar invite that made my stomach drop. I asked my brother Marcus what was going on. He ran our department, had for 3 years. He'd hired me 18 months ago when I needed a job after my old company folded. We kept things professional at work. Different last names because I took my husband's. We didn't advertise being siblings, but we didn't hide it either. HR knew. Our direct reports knew. We assumed everyone knew. Marcus said he'd gotten the same meeting invite. Neither of us knew what it was about. Monday morning, we walked into a conference room with 2 HR representatives and Diane from legal. Serious faces all around. We've received a formal complaint, HR Director Patricia said, alleging an inappropriate relationship between Department Head Marcus Chen and employee Sophie Brennan. I almost laughed, caught myself just in time. Patricia continued reading from a document. The complainant has documented numerous instances of concerning behavior, closed-door meetings with no apparent business purpose, physical affection including touching arms and shoulders, inside jokes and personal conversations during work hours, preferential treatment in assignments and scheduling. She looked up. These are serious allegations. We're required to investigate. Can I ask who filed this complaint? Marcus said. The complainant wishes to remain anonymous at this stage. Can I respond to the allegations? Patricia nodded. That's why we're here. Marcus pulled out his phone and showed Patricia a photo. Our family at Christmas. Mom, Dad, Marcus, me, my husband, my kids. Sophie is my sister. She's been my sister for 32 years. That's why we have lunch together and talk about personal things, because we're family. Patricia's face went blank. She looked at Diane from legal. Diane looked at her notes. This wasn't disclosed in the complaint. It's in my hiring paperwork, I said. The nepotism disclosure form. Marcus recused himself from my salary decisions and performance reviews because we're related. HR approved the arrangement. Patricia typed something into her laptop, scrolled, stopped. I see the disclosure here. Filed 18 months ago when you were hired. So whoever reported us either didn't check basic records or didn't care, Marcus said. They saw what they wanted to see. The meeting pivoted quickly. Patricia apologized for the confusion. Explained they were required to investigate all complaints regardless of merit. Asked if we knew who might have filed. We both knew. Vanessa Torres had made her feelings about me clear since day one. She'd wanted the position I was hired for. When Marcus promoted me to team lead 6 months ago, she'd barely spoken to me since. I didn't say her name. Didn't need to. We'll need to document that this complaint was unfounded, Patricia said. And we'll be looking into the circumstances around how it was filed. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. 2 weeks later, Vanessa was called into HR. Not about the false complaint against me. About her own conduct. The investigation she'd triggered opened a can of worms she never expected. When HR pulled records to verify the nepotism disclosure, they noticed other irregularities. Vanessa's timesheets didn't match building access logs. She'd been claiming overtime she never worked. 3 years of fabricated hours totaling over $40,000 in fraudulent pay. They also found emails where she'd taken credit for a junior employee's project, presented it to clients as her own work. The junior employee, too scared to report it, broke down crying when HR asked about it. And there were complaints from 2 other employees about Vanessa's behavior that had been sitting in a file, waiting for corroboration. Her false accusation against me provided the pattern they needed. Vanessa was terminated for cause, no severance, possible legal action pending, so escorted out on a Wednesday afternoon while the whole office watched. She glared at me on her way to the elevator, like I'd done this to her, like I'd made her falsify timesheets and steal credit and harass junior staff. All I'd done was eat lunch with my brother. She'd done the rest herself. The junior employee employee Vanessa had been stealing from got promoted to her position. Marcus announced it at the next team meeting. First time I'd ever seen that kid smile at work. Some people see wrongdoing everywhere because they're the ones doing wrong. They assume everyone operates like they do. Every closed door hides a secret because their closed doors hide secrets. Vanessa looked at me and my brother and saw an affair because she couldn't imagine a relationship built on something honest. She was so busy watching us she didn't notice the trail she was leaving behind. I still have lunch with Marcus every Thursday. We still talk about mom's health and my kids' soccer games and whether dad will ever retire. We don't lower our voices anymore. Don't close the door. Let people see exactly what a sibling relationship looks like. If anyone has a problem with it, they can file a complaint. I hear HR is very thorough these days.